Welcome to the cockpit of a Honda NSX, or Acura NSX, depending on where you are in the world. This is one of the most advanced supercars on the planet, and it almost had to be. The long-awaited successor to a 90s icon, Honda and Acura needed something pretty special. And with its hybrid system and its torque vectoring all-wheel drive, the new NSX is properly progressive, but when I first got to drive it, I couldn't help wondering, what would this car be like if it were a little bit more simple, without the electric motors and the battery packs? What would a really raw NSX feel like? Today, I get to find out, because today we are hitting the track in the NSX GT3.
As the name implies, the GT3 is the FIA GT3 spec race version of the road-going NSX. Pared down and gutted out, the GT3 weighs an astonishing 900 pounds less, yet still has a lot in common with the normal NSX. The chassis is the same as is most of the twin-turbo V6, but that engine is now free of all the hybrid baggage, free to spin only the rear wheels. Yes, no more all-wheel drive, now rear-driven as intended by God and by Shigeru Uehara, chief engineer of the original NSX. This should make for a much more simple, much more raw, fundamental driving experience, but that's not why those systems were evicted. They're gone because, simply, they're not legal. FIA regulations which this car had to meet dictated rear-wheel drive only and no hybrids. And so, if Honda wanted to go racing with the new NSX, and they really wanted to go racing, they had to simplify and add lightness. And that's exactly what they've done, relying only on the V6. The road car's 9-speed transmission is gone too, replaced with a 6-speed sequential manual unit, again per FIA regulations, still controlled by a pair of paddles on this outrageous steering wheel, which costs some $30,000 alone. That wheel, though, is connected to the same steering rack as on the road car.
And that's a good thing, because the steering is actually one of my favorite parts of this car. It's very light, and some people have criticized it for being too vague. But I think it's actually great. The precision is incredible. The speed of it. It's time to go around the hairpin. You don't have to shuffle steer or anything like that. You basically just turn the wheel and around you go. Something tells me, though, to be a little bit more careful in the race car.
With none of the fancy hybrid setup as found in the road car, the GT3 will indeed require a bit more finesse. Though the 18-inch wheels and tires are massive, 13 inches wide at the rear, and wearing proper race rubber, all that horsepower delivered just through 2 of them will be more than enough to get myself in trouble. Thankfully, there is a proper race-ready traction control system at play here. It offers 12 total settings ranging from fully off to heavy rain, all selectable by a knob right on the steering wheel. ABS too has 12 settings, and if that weren't enough, there are some rather extreme aerodynamics to help keep me planted.
The car's received a giant wing out back, and this front splitter too. The two combined give 5 times the downforce of the road car. I think that front splitter will make for a quick and clean decapitation for any critter that's unfortunate enough to run in front of me on the track today. The race car, of course, needs a lot more cooling too, so we have this giant vent in the hood, and the vents behind the doors are enlarged too. Overall, it actually looks a lot like the road car, just it's got a lot more to it.
That bodywork, the wing, and the splitter are entirely made of lightweight carbon fiber, which goes a long way toward helping this car hit that 2,900 pound target weight as set by the FIA. Again, that's about 900 pounds lighter than the road car. The weight savings are even more extreme inside the car, which is a minimalist paradise.
Just look at this place. Unlike the interior of the road-going NSX, which has been rightfully criticized for being a little bit too plasticky, everything in here is carbon fiber. Unlike the shiny, polished panels you find in a lot of supercars, the carbon here is raw and everything is cut back to the bare essentials. Everything in here is made to go fast, and it just makes me want to go fast just sitting in here. In the center console, we have a lot of the more important controls. The ignition, for example, we want to turn the car on, master switch. I can turn the ABS off, but I think I'll leave that on today. Things like the fire extinguisher and the windshield wipers too. On the steering wheel, we've got things like the pit speed limiter. I can flash my headlights on here. I can actually adjust the throttle mapping and the engine mapping to control how the power comes from that V6 behind me. I can even turn the windshield wipers on here too. On the floor of the car, it's just 2 pedals, just like on the road car. But unlike the road car, there is a clutch here. It's hiding down here in the steering wheel. It's this tiny little paddle on the lower left. If I want to get a gear, hold down this, select first gear with the main shift paddles, and away we go. Assuming I don't stall the car, which I'm a little bit worried about.
Okay, Here we go. Clutch in, first gear. The steering is actually, feels a little bit like the road car, amazingly. It is, of course, the same steering rack that they use in the production car, which is pretty impressive. But they're actually able to use that same component here in the race car, and it feels really good. It is, again, like the road car, very light feel, but very sharp, very precise. The throttle response is actually very different than the road car. It seems to have a little bit less torque down low than the road car, probably because it doesn't have that hybrid system to give it punch out of the corners. But once you let this thing have its head, when it stretches its legs a little bit, oh, it just goes and goes and goes. Oh my goodness. Because this is a mid-engine car, of course, it's situated pretty close to the nose. And I'm actually quite a bit lower than the road car, which just makes that feeling of speed so much greater. I feel like I am absolutely flying. The nose of the car is so sharp and so responsive. Like drive this car with your right foot like you can with the road-going NSX. You got to be a little bit more patient with it. But eating that throttle a little early, it's pretty lively. There's so much grip. Brakes are complaining. Finally, onto the long straight. See how much power I can get down this time. Yes! Oh, I never want this to end. This all day long. The road car's 9-speed transmission wasn't legal, so we've got a 6-speed sequential manual here again. And it's not nearly as smooth as the road car. The shifts are super quick. Just a little bit of a kick in the pants when you grab the next gear. Which feels pretty great. Just like the road car, the race car does do all the rev matching and auto flipping and all that stuff that I need, which makes my job a little bit easier out here, which I'm very appreciative of. Here we go on the straight again. Okay. And brake. Again, it's steel rotors on this car, unlike the carbon ceramics that are on the road car. So they're not quite as sharp. They have really good feel. This is incredible. The feeling, the vibrations, plucking from the transmission, the smell of all these composites. This is a full body experience. Oh, I love it.
Driving the GT3 in anger on the track is an overwhelming experience. Though the power down low in the rev range felt weaker than the road car, the top-end rush was addicting, just like a Honda of yore. And with the light steering and all that grip, I actually felt pretty comfortable in the car. Quite comfortable pushing my braking limits, getting on the throttle earlier, and really trying to get the most from those aerodynamics. Even though muscling this car around was mentally and physically exhausting, I didn't want to stop. But all things must end. Eventually, the checkered flag flew, and I had to bring it in.
This has just made me appreciate how good the road car is. I was out here this morning in the road-going NSX, putting down some pretty impressive lap times, having a really good time. The fact that I can do that in the road car, and then twist a little knob and turn it into a very respectable Grand Touring car, that's quite a feat. The NSX, both of these NSXs, are really incredible cars. Oh, what an experience.